روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. ما بعد، يقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: فاطمة بابها بابي وحجابها حجابي. Rasulullah would state that Fatima's door is my door. Indeed, Fatima's hijab is my hijab. Inshallah, as a recap, as we stated yesterday, over the course of the 3 nights that we have with you, we want to answer the question that repetitively arises in the events of Fatimiyya. And that question being, why did Fatima al-Zahra attend the door and not Amir al-Mu'mineen when the attackers came towards the house of Fatima? Now, yesterday we had a very brief understanding for the introduction. And to ask the question, why is the issue so important? And when we discuss the importance of the issue, we shed a light upon why it hasn't been mentioned as much as it has been, and why anyone in the position of power within the Islamic Ummah would try their utmost in order for them to keep the issue and the event as quiet as possible and not highlight the incident, because their very position, their wealth, what they have, is basically sitting upon the fact that people do not discover why Fatima al-Zahra died in the first place. So inshallah tonight, to continue from yesterday, as some of the brothers asked, we mentioned which lens to look at Fatima al-Zahra. Because as you know, as followers of Ahlul Bayt, people will come to us and ask us a very important questions at the time of Fatimiyya. And that question is being, can you please tell me about this personality that you revere within Islamic thought and Islamic history, and have all your principles revolving around this central figure, which is Fatima? Can you please showcase to me who Fatima is? Now, the first level is we're going to look at which lens to showcase Fatima in. And that's very important, especially with someone that's not understanding the position of Fatima and who Fatima is within Shia thought. What's the best way to showcase Fatima to them? And what's the way that we're trying to avoid showcasing Fatima to them? Secondly, once we've understood which lens to showcase Fatima, how does that all of a sudden apply to our life? Knowing and understanding the lens, what are the different levels that we can apply Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra to our lives? Whether we be male or whether we be female. What are the different levels that we can apply her life within our everyday perspective? And thirdly, within the time, inshallah, we'll discuss understanding all these faculties, the lenses, how to apply Fatima. We want to look at the importance in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah we'll continue tomorrow to take that importance, that level, that persona, the position that she has, and answer the question that we highlighted at the start yesterday, which is, why did Fatima attend the door and not Ali ibn Abi Talib? So inshallah we can bless the majlis and start the important topic for tonight, and the blessing with 3 of your loudest salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Someone comes, whether you're in school, whether in your high school, universities, whether it be in your workplaces, and they'll ask you, what faith are you? Because as you know, Imam Sadiq has a very beautiful statement saying, كُونُوا دُعَاةٌ لَنَا بِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ, meaning that the way that you act within the workplace, within, let's say, your university environment, school environments, you have to understand that people, if you act in the correct manner, will be drawn towards your characteristics, your morality, your akhlaq. All of a sudden, you'll have a particular question being asked, and that being, what faith do you follow? And when someone highlights the fact that they follow the Ahlul Bayt, they'll begin to ask questions. Who are the Ahlul Bayt? and the central figure towards Ahlul Bayt is Fatima al-Zahra, then the question comes forward. How can you showcase to me this great lady by the name of Fatima al-Zahra? Now the lenses we mentioned very briefly yesterday, one of them, but we're going to go into depth tonight. The first lens that people other than the school of Ahlul Bayt would showcase Fatima, they say that Fatima was a great lady. Within history, that she had very beautiful merits, but she was a lady like every other lady. That, wal-iyadhu billah, she may have had faults like every other lady. She may have had an aspect where she is fallible. She may have had particular feelings. She may have particular, for example, inclinations. That she was a normal person like any other. And that's the way they try to depict Fatima al-Zahra. Saying that at the end of the day, yes, she was the daughter of Rasulullah. She was the daughter. But she was a normal human being. First lens. Not the one that we're going to go with. Not the one that we showcase. Because that lens is a lens that's untruthful to the position of Fatima al-Zahra. What's the next lens? They say, no, she doesn't have any faults. But why doesn't she have any faults? Because that's a question. If we know that Fatima doesn't have any faults, they try to justify why she's not fallible by saying that, the environment that she was in cocooned her from performing any acts that displeased Allah. Why? Because the environment that she was in, her father was Rasulullah, her husband Amir al-Mu'mineen, her sons Hassan and Hussein. So she was in an environment where she couldn't do anything. And that's why she was infallible. Or that she was not going towards anything that was sinful. So let's take that particular perspective then. And that's another lens they try to showcase Fatima, saying that, she was a normal human, but she didn't fault because of the environment that she was in. One extreme of the lenses of Fatima. Now let's look at the other extreme. And you'll find that this particular extreme, you'll even find people from the Shia faith falling into it. And you'll find on the other extreme, when Fatima al-Zahra is showcased, you'll begin to see that people come forward with traditions as follows. Saying that when we entered the house of Fatima, we saw Fatima praying. When she was praying, we saw the pot by itself on the fire, the wheat by itself grinding, the aspect of Imam Hussein's cradle being rocked by itself. And then you'll find, even though the miraculous aspects where we understand that the angels were there to assist within the house, and they had a footprint within the house of Rasulullah, had a footprint within the house of Fatima, had the footprints in the house of Ali. But the way they try to explain Fatima, it's as if she didn't do anything except worship. That's the other extreme lens. Then you'll find, even within our works, there's things that try to showcase Fatima in a very negative manner. By which they say that, for example, look at this tradition, to showcase to you how they try to lower from the rank of Fatima al-Zahra, lower from the rank of Ali. There's a tradition that states that all of a sudden Rasulullah, with the jama'ah that he was with, finished praying Salatul Fajr. Look at this tradition. When they finished praying Salatul Fajr, the tradition says that Rasulullah left the mosque, and as he's walking home, he sees Ali ibn Abi Talib in front of his house asleep. Let's look at this tradition. Firstly, in that first aspect, since when does Imam Ali miss Salatul Fajr? So look at the tradition in itself. That he prayed Fajr, he came towards the house of Ali, so Ali outside, asleep. And then he asks, "Oh Ali, why are you outside the house?" And they try to paint the picture that he had a conflict with Fatima, and Fatima kicks him out. There's hadiths like this. And you'll find these hadith, and they're not in the opposition. You'll find them even within our books. To what? To put into perspective that all of a sudden there's an aspect of Fatima not being the perfect role model. But you see, there's these ahadith on one scale, trying to lower from the image of Fatima. And then there's on the other scale, which showcase Fatima only to be praying all the time and the angels doing all her work. But we go towards Amir al-Mu'mineen and look at the lens that we want to look at Fatima al-Zahra. That lens, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would say to one of his companions, he says, Ya ibn Sa'd, shall I tell you of the daughter of Rasulullah? Look at how Amir al-Mu'mineen tries to paint the picture of Fatima. He would say, shall I tell you about the daughter of Rasulullah? Ibn Sa'd says, please tell me. This is years after Fatima passed, that Amir al-Mu'mineen would always remember her. That they would say that his companions would come to him in the time of Eid and they say, Imam Ali, white beard. Oh Ali, will you not dye your beard? It's a time of celebration. You know what Ali replies? This is at the end of his life. He says it's a sign of celebration, sign of happiness. And he says Ali is in mourning. He says, but it's Eid. He says it's a state of mourning still. What are you mourning for, O Amir al-Mu'mineen? He would say, for the death of Fatima al-Zahra. At the end of his life, still he mourns Fatima. He says to Ibn Sa'd, says, Ibn Sa'd, the way that I remember the daughter of Rasulullah, I would come back, I would see that she would dust the house so much that the dust would have an effect on the clothes that she wore. That she would grind the wheat so much that it would affect the hands that she would grind it with. That she would stir the pots in preparation of the food so much that that particular stick that she was preparing the food with would have an effect on her body. That she would utilize any moment that she had to serve, to assist, to raise the children, to assist me as the husband. You know, Fatima al-Zahra, what we need to understand about the light of Fatima, the way that we need to showcase Fatima, is the perfect woman in one aspect, the perfect mother in the next aspect, the perfect wife, the perfect daughter. Because when we look at the miracles, you know, when we say that Fatima prayed and there was miracles around her, let's look at a different lens. Let's look at every single perspective and character of Fatima as a miracle. Because what's a miracle? Mu'jiza, when you break down the words, ma ajiza anhu nas, yes? That people cannot comprehend or cannot achieve that particular thing. Each and every character of Fatima al-Zahra is a miracle in itself. When we showcase Fatima al-Zahra, what do we read in the traditions? When we go towards the maqtal of Fatima, Ali, apart from the part where he goes and washes the body of Fatima, then goes towards the corner and he puts his head between his knees and cries because he just felt the rib. You know what else in that particular maqtal? He would say, look at this moment, that Fatima never tried to harm Amir al-Mu'mineen, even feelings. She wouldn't say, for example, at any time that we don't have food in the house, that I am hungry, that I need something, lest Amir al-Mu'mineen could not or has not the ability to provide. He would say that when he went towards that corner, he would say, now I know why Fatima in the last days of her life never looked at me in her eyes. Why? Question. Fatima, you have to understand, when the door incident occurred, Fatima is attacked. When the nail pieced the body, when the ribs are broken, when there's internal bleeding, there's not many days left in the life of Fatima al-Zahra. The agony and the pain that she was in, only a few days did she survive. But those few days, I mean, what does he say? That I remember why Fatima didn't look me in the eye. Why? He said that when I was washing her body, I saw her face was bruised. She didn't want to look at me because lest I saw that bruise and I am hurt. Look at Fatima. She's in pain, but she's thinking, I don't want to cause pain towards Ali. That's a miracle in itself. Which person, if they're in pain, they want other people to know. They want to showcase, they want to share their feelings, they want people to assist them, to aid them. Fatima saying, I don't even want to trouble Amir al-Mu'mineen, even his feelings, lest he is hurt by looking towards me. That's the lens that you want to look at Fatima al-Zahra. When you showcase Fatima, you look at each and every character that she had, every position in her life, as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, as a protector for the religion when we look at it tomorrow. Like, imagine how grand is this lady that Rasulullah would say the following, that Fatima ummu abiha. What kind of motherly instincts does she have? Support, love, comfort. That was Fatima az-Zahra. Now, taking that lens and understanding this is the lens we need to showcase Fatima towards the world. Before we even delve into the Quran is a whole different aspect. Because you think, when you look at the miracle of the character of Fatima, you think she's here. When you look within the Holy Quran, you won't begin to understand where Fatima is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take this lens. Now, how do we apply it within our lives? What are the different levels that a person can take knowledge from a personality and apply it towards their life? Question. Because now, when we look at Fatima az-Zahra, there are 3 different levels that a person can take the knowledge of Fatima and apply it within their lives. The first is a very basic level and understanding of Fatima az-Zahra. What is it? Is that a person can go and read the biography of Fatima. He would understand the characteristics of Fatima. He would read about her life, how many children she had, how old were the children, when did she get married, who was her husband, who was her father, who was her mother, the levels in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and surround Fatima's biography. But they stop there. So you ask them, they're an encyclopedia about Fatima az-Zahra. They ask, did Fatima, for example, pray night prayers? They will say, yes. But you ask that same person, did you pray night prayers? He goes, no. That person's level of understanding of Fatima is what? It's a very basic level. Because why? He doesn't utilize anything that he knows within his life. Nothing. But he knows about Fatima az-Zahra. We know. How much do we apply? So now, as an example, so there's many youth in the audience. I guarantee you, I'll say a particular name and look at everyone's eyes come out of their heads. As if I say, for example, personalities like Messi or Ronaldo. So everyone's paying attention now. If I say these personalities, I guarantee you, most of the youth here would know more than average about their life, where they are, what clubs they played for, how old they are right now, their children, who their wives are, what club they played for how long, how many goals they have, how many assists, the whole GOAT debate. They'll know everything about Messi and Ronaldo. But they go a step further. When they play, for example, let's say they have FIFA, PlayStation or Xbox. When they play, that's who they want to pack in those packs. That's who they want to have in their teams. They build the teams around them. Why? Because they have an understanding, they have a love to that person. You'll find they'll buy shirts that have their numbers, their names. They'll wake up at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning just to watch them play. But they're not doing anything for them. Like whether they win, whether they lose, you've got nothing in your pocket. But they have that connection with them. If they play themselves, they want to celebrate like that person celebrates. They want to wear their socks or style their hair in the same manner because it's affected them in such a manner. But it doesn't help them in any way. When we look at personalities, when we say Fatima az-Zahra, for example, we say that person has an understanding of Fatima. How many of us go to the next level? What's the next level? It's when I read a particular scripture, or I read a lecture, or I understand an event that occurred and how Fatima reacted, that I utilize that information and apply it to my life. As an example, let's take the story within the Holy Quran of when Hassan and Hussein were ill. When they were ill, Fatima az-Zahra and Ali ibn Abi Talib would say, "Oh Allah, if you cure them, we'll fast for 3 days." As for us, as just this example, how many of us, when our children become ill, do we say that, you know what, oh Allah, if you cure them, I'm going to give something back towards you, or I'm going to fast, or I'm going to give charity? Something so simple. Why? Because we've read it in the biography of Fatima al-Zahra. We want to apply it within our lives. If I read that Fatima al-Zahra woke up for night prayers, and I want Fatima as my role model, I take that next level, saying that I'm going to start applying what I've learned from her biography into my life. And that's the second level. You understand someone, you try to apply them within their life. It's just not learning about their biography. It's applying what I've learned. Then comes the third level. And that's the one that the scholars come forward and say it's when you dissolve in the love of someone. How do you dissolve in the love? It's the understanding that you wouldn't do anything that that person would not do. That you try to follow their footsteps. Wherever they put their right foot, you put your right foot. Wherever they put their left foot, you put your left foot. In an understanding, when we look towards and examples within history, can someone dissolve in a personality so much they become their shadow? They become the spitting image and the mirror of that personality. Of course they can be. When we look at Rasulullah, for example, many of people ask, why do you follow Ali to such a level? It's because no one else followed Rasulullah like Amir al-Mu'mineen. That Ali ibn Abi Talib tried to have Rasulullah as a role model to such a level that the Quran testifies. How? When we look at Ayat al-Mubahala. In Ayat al-Mubahala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Rasulullah, say the following lines to the Christians of Najran: bring forward your sons, we'll bring forward our sons. You bring forward your woman, we'll bring forward our woman, plural. Bring forward yourselves, we'll bring forth ourselves. Now we understand, as the children he brought forward to represent Islam, Hassan and Hussein, undisputed within Shia and Sunni literature. As women that represent Islam, because you have to understand, it's the representation. Rasulullah, instead of all the women that he could choose, he brought forward one woman that represents the entire religion, and that was Fatima al-Zahra. But the understanding is where? The next level. The Quran says, oh Rasulullah, bring forward yourself. Who does he bring forward? Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Quran testified that Amir al-Mu'mineen can be brought forward as Rasulullah's self. Look at how much the Amir al-Mu'mineen delved and dissolved in the love of a personality that he became who he wanted to follow, in the sense of everything Rasulullah did, Amir al-Mu'mineen would do. That he wouldn't do anything Rasulullah would not. And that's why we understand that to be the next level. There's many comparisons. Likewise, we have, for example, Abu Fadl al-Abbas, Imam Hussein, Sayyidah Zainab, Fatima al-Zahra. Many examples of people that followed to such a perspective that they dissolved in the love of that personality that they tried to follow. And that's what we try to aim towards. Not that I hear a story, sometimes that story of Fatima, matches my lifestyle, so I'll apply it. For example, the stories of her, let's say, being good towards children. Maybe like, I'll be good towards my children. They're my area. But if something comes that questions your belief, or that, I can't apply this to my life, you don't just pick and choose from who you follow. You can imagine picking and choosing from the Holy Quran. Like, oh, you know what? I like this particular act of halal. This one, not so much. I'm going to leave that because I like performing this particular act. You want to dissolve in the love of a personality? Take everything. Don't leave out things. Don't say, this fits my lifestyle. This doesn't. I'm going to leave it aside. But the Ahlul Bayt teach us something. And that's, how do we go about applying this? Because many of us would come for this particular statement where we say, in any act that we do, qurbatan ilallah, don't we? We want to particular act of mustahab, or give charity, or do this particular good act of kindness, loyalty or reward. And we say qurbatan ilallah, don't we? Literal meaning, in aim that we get closeness towards Allah, isn't it? We aim to get closer towards Allah. But we understand that Allah doesn't have a place, does He? Where we say that we want to get closer towards Allah. Doesn't have a place. So what do we mean we perform good acts to get closer towards Allah? What do we mean? Abu Hanifa had a debate once with Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq said to him, hold on, all of a sudden I hear that you're giving fatwa by yourself. And he says, yeah, I've reached a level where I can give fatwa. And he goes, okay, I just want to ask you a question. So what's the question? He goes, what's something that you perform every day more than anything else? So he goes, well, I pray, more than anything else during my day. He goes, okay, no problem. So if you pray, what do you think that you say most within your salah? So he's thinking, he goes, probably Allahu Akbar. He goes, okay, no problem. If you're so good at giving fatwas, please tell me, what does Allahu Akbar mean? Simple question, isn't it? So he looks at Imam Sadiq and he says, Allahu Akbar means that Allah is greater than all things. He goes, hold on. You haven't understood this particular phrase. He goes, why? He goes, you're objectifying Allah, therefore you haven't understood the correct tawheed. He goes, what do you mean? He says, you're saying Allah is greater than all things, meaning that Allah is greater, for example, than an elephant or a planet or a galaxy. You're objectifying Him. Therefore, you haven't understood this particular phrase that you think that you say every single day. He goes, oh, then Imam Sadiq, Ya ibn Rasulullah, please tell me what's the correct manner in which to think about this phrase, Allahu Akbar. And Imam Sadiq looks at him and he says, when you say Allahu Akbar, the understanding is Allah is greater than to be described. Akbar min an yusaf. That's the understanding you have to not that Allah is greater in the aspect of objectifying Him and comparing Him. So when we say qurbatan ila Allah, Allah doesn't have a place. Then what do we mean? Characteristics wise, there are many different explanations for this. One of which states that Allah is the most perfect in all characters. So when you are performing a particular act, let's say that particular act is generosity. You say, I'm performing this particular act of generosity, qurbatan ilallah, meaning Allah is the most generous, isn't He? So when I particular act of generosity, I'm trying to reach the all generous. In my scale of generosity, all of a sudden I'm performing an act, I get closer towards perfection. Closer towards perfection. And that goes in all acts. You try and get closer towards Allah in the characteristics that you have. And that's when we look at towards Ahlul Bayt. Their characteristics are the ones that are looked at to be perfect. And that's why they're the manifestations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. If ever want to gain closeness, we have to understand that these are the manifestations, and following them will gain us closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, on an ending notion, Fatima al-Zahra tomorrow night will answer the question, why did Fatima attend the door? But just to highlight particular aspects that we're going to mention. We said Fatima al-Zahra's character, miracle in itself. But then where does Fatima's position lay in the eyes of Islam? Because when we understand, you try to showcase Fatima towards people that don't know who Fatima is. And imagine you telling them that the first person that will enter paradise will be Fatima al-Zahra. I guarantee you, I want to ask you, who is this Fatima that from the existence of Adam till the last day, the first that will enter paradise will be this personality by the name of Fatima al-Zahra. Tell me more about this great lady. Do you know Imam Al-Askari has a particular statement? Just to showcase to you, our Imams, you know, whenever we want to get closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we say? We get closer, we try to ask Allah through people. As a wasila towards Allah. You know, when we say Ya Ali, for example, we say Ya Hussein, or Ya Sahib al-Zaman. Imam Al-Askari says, نحن حجج الله على الخلق. Not just Muslims, not just mu'mins, not just Shia. We are the hujjah of Allah on what? On creation. You know what he goes on to say? وَفَاطِمَ حُجَّةٌ عَلَيْنَا. So you know when we say Ya Sahib al-Zaman, do you know what Sahib al-Zaman is saying? Ya Fatima. Because she's the hujjah on him. Imagine. Take that into perspective. Let that sink in to showcase to us on an ending note the position of Fatima al-Zahra and how perfect each and every action that she does is in the eyes of Allah. That He says that, you know what, even when you are angry, it's so perfect that I make sure that everyone knows whenever you're angered that I am angered. Whenever you are pleased with someone, I am pleased with someone. So on an ending notion, inshallah, we ask Allah that He allows us to not only learn the biography of Fatima al-Zahra, but we also apply it within our lives, inshallah, that we ask Allah that He allows us to be of the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman with the Surah al-Mubarakat al-Fatiha. But before it, 3 of your loudest salawat.